Imagine a land where the scorching sun reigns supreme, where vast deserts stretch endlessly, and ancient tribes vie for power and survival. This is the Arabian Peninsula in the 6th century, a world on the brink of monumental change. In this world, a man named Mohammed emerged, not just as a merchant, but as a visionary who would challenge the very foundations of society. This is not just the story of the birth of Islam, but the tale of epic battles, relentless persecution, incredible suffering, and the faith that transcends all challenges. Join me as we journey back in time to uncover the extraordinary life of Mohammed, a man whose vision would transform not just his homeland, but the entire world.
This is where our journey begins, a journey back in time. From the dawn of civilization in Mesopotamia to the rise of glorious empires, from the halo of fabled personalities to the shadows of ruthless regimes. Witness the drama of epic battles and the moments when the world stood still. Events that didn't destroy us, but defined us. We combine cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence to resurrect legendary historical towns and retell ancient love stories. Underpinned by powerful music, you'll feel like you're part of it. Welcome to Epic Histories, where each chapter brings the past alive.
In this vast and diverse land, society was organized around clans and tribes. These tribes were often nomadic or semi-nomadic, living in goat hair tents and moving seasonally to find grazing for their livestock. The most powerful tribes included the Quraysh, who controlled Mecca and its sacred shrine, the Aqaba, the Banu Hashim, a subclan of the Quraysh, and the Banu Thaqif, who dominated Taif. Tribal alliances were crucial for survival in this harsh environment. These alliances provided mutual protection and facilitated trade. However, they also led to bloody conflicts known as Days of War, Ayyam al-Arab, fought over issues like territory disputes or honor. For instance, the famous War of Hijrah, a series of skirmishes between rival tribes, including the Quraysh and Banu Kinana, was sparked by a dispute over a woman's honor during a pilgrimage season. This war lasted for several years and involved many tribes across Arabia. Violence was an integral part of life in pre-Islamic Arabia. Raids, ghazu, were frequent occurrences where one tribe would attack another to capture livestock or slaves. These raids were seen as legitimate ways to acquire wealth and prestige. Women in pre-Islamic Arabia had varying degrees of status. Some women enjoyed relative freedom and influence within their tribes, like Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, a successful merchant who would later become Muhammad's first wife. However, many others were subject to strict patriarchal norms. Women could be married off at a young age and were often seen as commodities in tribal politics. Sexual relationships were strictly regulated but varied widely depending on social status. Polygamy was common among wealthy men who could afford multiple wives. Extramarital relationships were strictly forbidden and often punished harshly under tribal law. Slavery was also prevalent. Slaves were captured during raids or purchased from neighboring regions. They performed various tasks ranging from domestic chores to labor in agriculture and trade. The social hierarchy was starkly divided. At the top were tribal leaders and wealthy merchants, followed by free men who were not part of the elite but still held significant status. Below them were slaves and clients, non-tribal members who sought protection under a tribe. Women generally ranked lower in this hierarchy unless they were from influential families. The Arabian Peninsula was strategically located at the crossroads of major trade routes. The Incense Road connected the Mediterranean region with India via Arabia, while the Silk Road linked China with Europe through Central Asia and parts of Arabia. These routes brought immense wealth to cities like Mecca and Medina, which became hubs for international commerce. Pre-Islamic Arabia was deeply polytheistic. The Aqaba in Mecca housed over 360 idols representing various deities worshipped by different tribes. Each tribe had its own gods and goddesses. For example, the Quraysh tribe revered Hubal as their chief deity. Idol worship was an integral part of daily life, with rituals performed during pilgrimages to sacred sites like the Kaaba. Despite its polytheistic nature, Arabia was not isolated from monotheistic influences. Judaism had a significant presence in regions like Medina, then known as Yathrib, where Jewish tribes such as the Banu Kainuka and Banu Nadir resided. Christianity also had adherents among certain tribes along the northern borders of Arabia. These monotheistic faiths introduced concepts that would later influence Islam, such as the idea of one God and prophetic traditions. But they did not dominate pre-Islamic Arabian society. In this scorching desert landscape of Arabia, a young boy named Muhammad ibn Abdullah was born in 570 CE. Muhammad was born into the Banu Hashim clan, a respected branch of the Quraysh tribe in Mecca. His father, Abdullah ibn Abdul Muttalib, was a member of this noble lineage but passed away before Muhammad was born. Muhammad's mother, Amina bint Wahb, was from the Banu Kinana tribe. She belonged to a family known for their wisdom and piety. After giving birth to Muhammad, Amina decided to send him to live with a Bedouin family in the desert, as was customary among Arabs, to ensure better health and stronger physical development for their children. When Muhammad was just 6 years old, his mother Amina died during a journey from Mecca to Medina. This left him an orphan twice over, first by his father's death before birth and now by his mother's passing. His paternal grandfather, Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim, took on the responsibility of caring for him until his own death when Muhammad was 8 years old. Following Abdul Muttalib's death, Muhammad's uncle, Abu Talib ibn Abdul Muttalib, became his guardian. Abu Talib was not only kind, but also a leader within their tribe who ensured that Muhammad received proper care and education despite their family's modest means. As Muhammad grew older, he began working as a merchant and trader under the guidance of his uncle Abu Talib. These early experiences shaped his future skills in negotiation, leadership, and community building. At around the age of 25, Muhammad managed caravans on behalf of wealthy merchants, including Khadijah bint Khuwaylid, a successful businesswoman. Khadijah bint Khuwaylid was an influential figure in Meccan society. A widow with 2 children from previous marriages who had built a thriving trading business through her intelligence and entrepreneurial spirit. Impressed by Muhammad's integrity and business acumen during their trading expeditions together, Khadijah proposed marriage to him, despite being older than him by several years. Their marriage in 595 CE marked a significant turning point in Muhammad's life. Khadijah brought stability and support that allowed him to focus on his spiritual pursuits, while she managed their household affairs with great wisdom. Together, they had 6 children, 4 daughters, Zainab, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fatima, and 2 sons, Abdullah and Qasim, although only Fatima survived into adulthood. As Muhammad approached his 40th year, he began retreating to Mount Hira near Mecca for periods of contemplation known as tahanuth. These retreats involved fasting during the month of Ramadan, a practice common among some Arabs, and seeking solitude in caves where he could reflect deeply on life's mysteries. On a fateful night in the month of Ramadan, Muhammad retreated to his favorite spot on Mount Hira for solitude and contemplation. As he sat in his cave, known as the Cave of Hira, he was suddenly confronted by an ethereal figure who introduced himself as the Angel Gabriel. According to Islamic tradition, Gabriel appeared before Muhammad with an imposing presence that filled the entire cave. The angel commanded Muhammad to read or recite in Arabic, but Muhammad, who was illiterate at the time, replied that he could not read. Gabriel then grasped him tightly until he felt as though he could no longer bear it, and released him. This process was repeated 3 times before Gabriel finally revealed to Muhammad the first verses of what would become the Quran. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot of blood. Recite, for your Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man what he did not know. Surah Al-Alaq, verses 1 to 5. The encounter left Muhammad shaken and bewildered. He described feeling as though his heart had been torn apart and then mended back together again. The intensity of this experience was so profound that it left an indelible mark on his psyche. As he descended from Mount Hijrah, Muhammad felt a sense of confusion and fear. He questioned whether he had truly seen an angel or if it was merely a product of his imagination. The weight of this revelation was crushing. He feared for his sanity and wondered if he might be possessed by some malevolent spirit. Upon returning home, Muhammad sought solace in the arms of his wife Khadijah bint Khuwaylid. Khadijah listened intently as he recounted his extraordinary experience. She reassured him that he was neither mad nor possessed, but rather chosen by God for a greater purpose. Khadijah took him to see her cousin Waraqah ibn Nawfal, an elderly Christian scholar who recognized the significance of Muhammad's vision. Waraqah confirmed that Muhammad had indeed been visited by an angel and predicted that he would become a prophet. The initial revelations were met with skepticism by many in Mecca. However, Khadijah's steadfast belief in her husband's divine mission helped bolster his confidence during these early days. She became one of the first believers in Islam, along with Ali ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's cousin, and Zayd ibn Haritha, a freed slave. Muhammad's call to monotheism and moral reform was not met with immediate acceptance. Initially, he shared his message with close family members and friends. However, as his confidence grew, so did his public preaching. In 613 CE, Muhammad began to openly proclaim his message to the people of Mecca, calling them to abandon their idols and worship one God. This public declaration was a bold move, given the strong religious and cultural ties the Quraysh tribe had with their polytheistic beliefs. The Kaaba, a sacred shrine in Mecca, housing numerous idols representing various deities worshipped by Arabs, stood as a symbol of these traditions. The response from the Quraysh was swift and severe. They saw Muhammad's teachings as an affront to their way of life and economic interests derived from pilgrims visiting the Kaaba. The persecution took many forms. Economic sanctions. Muslims were denied access to markets and trade routes. Physical abuse. Many early Muslims faced beatings, torture, or even death for their beliefs. Social ostracism. Muslims were excluded from family gatherings, social events, and community activities. One poignant example is Bilal ibn Rabah's story, a slave who converted to Islam. His master subjected him to extreme torture in an attempt to force him to renounce his faith. Bilal was dragged through the hot desert sand with heavy rocks placed on his chest. Despite this, Bilal remained steadfast in his belief in one God. In 615 CE, due to increasing persecution in Mecca, Muhammad advised some followers to migrate to Abyssinia, where they would find refuge under Christian King Negus. This migration marked one of the earliest diasporas in Islamic history and demonstrated the willingness of early Muslims to seek safety and freedom to practice their faith. As the situation in Mecca continued to deteriorate for Muslims, an opportunity emerged from another part of Arabia that would change the course of history. In 621 CE, Muhammad met with representatives from the Aws and Khazraj tribes at Aqaba, near Mecca. These tribes were from Yathrib, later known as Medina, a city located about 250 miles north of Mecca. The meeting was facilitated by Musab ibn Umayr, who had been sent by Muhammad to spread Islam in Medina. Musab ibn Umayr played a crucial role in introducing Islam to the people of Medina. His charisma and knowledge helped win over many converts among the Aws and Khazraj tribes. During this period, he also taught them how to read and write Arabic and instructed them in Islamic rituals. During their meeting at Aqaba, representatives from both tribes pledged their allegiance to Muhammad in what is known as the First Pledge of Aqaba. This pledge marked a significant turning point. It was an agreement that these tribes would protect Muhammad and his followers if they were to migrate to Medina. A year later, in 622 CE, another meeting took place at Aqaba, where more representatives from Medina came to pledge their support. This second pledge of Aqaba included a commitment to defend Muhammad against any enemies and marked the beginning of preparations for the Hijrah, migration from Mecca to Medina. By the year 622 CE, the situation in Mecca had become increasingly perilous for Muhammad and his followers. The Quraysh leaders, who had long opposed Muhammad's message, grew more desperate as his influence expanded. They saw the spread of Islam as a threat not only to their religious traditions, but also to their economic and social power. In a clandestine meeting, the leaders of the Quraysh tribes conspired to assassinate Muhammad. This plot was revealed to him through divine revelation, prompting him to prepare for a secret departure from Mecca. This event marked the beginning of the Hijrah, or migration, which would be a pivotal moment in Islamic history. On the night of September 8th, 622 CE, Muhammad left his home in Mecca under the cover of darkness. He was accompanied by his trusted companion and future caliph, Abu Bakr al-Siddiq. The two men made their way to a cave on Mount Thar, where they hid for 3 days to avoid detection by their pursuers. During this time, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Muhammad's cousin and future caliph, remained behind in Mecca to settle some of Muhammad's affairs and to mislead any potential trackers by sleeping in Muhammad's bed. This act of bravery and loyalty would be remembered as one of the most significant acts of devotion in early Islamic history. After their brief stay in the cave, Muhammad and Abu Bakr began their arduous journey northwards towards Medina, then known as Yathrib. The journey was approximately 200 miles long and took several days to complete. Along the way, they encountered various tribes and individuals who were either hostile or neutral towards them. One notable encounter was with a Bedouin named Suraka ibn Malik al-Mudlaji, who initially pursued them with the intention of capturing them for the reward offered by the Quraysh. However, after a series of miraculous events that seemed to protect Muhammad and Abu Bakr, Suraka became convinced of their divine mission and eventually converted to Islam. Upon arriving in Medina on September 24, 622 CE, Muhammad was greeted warmly. The citizens, having heard of his journey, gathered along the outskirts of the city, eager to welcome him. Men, women, and children lined the streets, their faces beaming with joy and hope. Palm branches were waved in the air, and the sound of drums and chants echoed through the city. Allahu Akbar, they cried, celebrating the arrival of the Prophet. The streets were adorned with colorful fabrics and flowers, creating a festive atmosphere. Muhammad, riding on a camel, was greeted with warm smiles and outstretched hands. The people of Medina, known for their hospitality, offered him food and drink, and many invited him into their homes. As he entered the city, he was surrounded by a sea of welcoming faces, each person eager to catch a glimpse of the man who would soon become their spiritual leader. The celebration continued with feasts and communal prayers, marking the beginning of a new chapter for Medina. This momentous occasion was not just the arrival of a revered leader, but the dawn of a new era of unity and faith for the people of Medina. However, beneath the surface of this newfound peace, tensions were brewing. The city of Mecca, once Muhammad's home, now stood as a formidable adversary. The Quraysh, powerful and unyielding, were not ready to accept the rise of Islam without a fight. The horizon darkened with the looming threat of conflict. The battle for faith and survival was just beginning. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this epic saga, where the struggle between Mecca and Medina will unfold, testing the resilience and faith of Muhammad and his followers. The journey is far from over, and the stakes have never been higher.